Hey guys, welcome back, Raccoon MMA. Listen, I don't like to always be making negative videos, but listen, we're having a full circle moment here. First video on my channel is a little something about how somebody got robbed in a title fight, and now here we are back again. But it's not just about Steve Erceg. I think that everybody was talking about how UFC 301 was going to suck, how the card was bad, right, blah, blah, blah. Our main event is, one of the champions that people, think about the least against some contender that nobody knows and blah, blah, blah. But, I don't know, I was watching it, and there were some good fights in the undercard, and I was having a good time. But there kept being these things. And, something happens in every card. Like, that's just how sports go. But, things kept happening on this card, whether it was the crowd, whether it was the referees, whether it was the judges, over and over again, that just kind of ruined it. And it's a systematic problem with, you see the thing on screen right now, right? It's a systematic problem with Brazil. This happens every time the UFC goes to Brazil, and they have to stop. I know that Brazil is where mixed martial arts came from, but they've got to stop. So let's get right into it. A few key reasons why this sucked. So, 3 things. The refs sucked, except for Mark Goddard. The judges sucked, and the fans sucked. Let's go. Let's start off with the referees, because I want to point something out here, right? And I don't think anyone's really talked about this, which is that, the refereeing was so clearly biased in this fight, in this event, right? The 2 examples I have here are Mytkybek Orolbai and Michel Pereira, right? Mytkybek Orolbai was a foreigner fighting a Brazilian. Michel Pereira was a Brazilian fighting a foreigner, one who is particularly hated in Brazil, right? So, when Orolbai was fighting Elvis Brenner, there's a point in the 3rd round where he's about to get taken down, he reaches out, he grabs the fence. Illegal, right? Something he shouldn't have done, and the ref just takes a point. Fair enough, right? That is within the ref's right to do. You are allowed to do that. It's fine that you're doing that. Okay. But it's pretty out of... There's not an established precedent of referees doing this, right? People always talk about how refs never punish anybody, how it's always they tell you not to do it, and then they give you a hard warning, and then they take the point, right? Taking the point right away with no warning is something that you don't really see a lot. Unless it's for something really, really blatant, deliberately kicking somebody in the groin, not just panicking and reaching out and grabbing the fence as you're about to be taken down, right? Especially because he got taken down anyways, and it didn't actually really affect the fight. So, sure. Again, something that the ref could have done well within their rights, but just kind of weird, right? Especially when you then compare it to Michel Pereira fighting Ior Potieria, right? Because what happens? Early in the fight, he knocks Potieria down, he does one of his dumb video game backflips onto him, lands a knee straight on the guy's jaw as he's lying on his back on the ground, one of the most blatantly illegal strikes I've ever seen in my life, right? Almost as bad as when Petr Yan kneed Aljo in the head. Just clearly illegal. You do a leg strike to the head of a grounded opponent. And then, while Potieria is stunned and trying to get back up, he locks in a guillotine. Potieria taps and immediately starts convulsing on the ground. The ref didn't stop the fight. He didn't make Pereira surrender the position. He didn't even give him a warning, let alone take a point, right? And despite the fact that the finishing sequence hinged on a blatantly illegal strike that clearly had a huge effect, nothing happened. The fight did not become a disqualification loss. It did not become a no contest. And I just think it's funny, right, that the Brazilian fighting the foreigner doesn't even get a slap on the wrist for something blatantly illegal, whereas the person fighting the Brazilian gets pretty severely punished for a minor infraction, right? I think that this is a pretty big double standard, and it wasn't this was Mark Goddard or Mike Beltran. These were the lower level refs, Brazilian referees, put there by the Brazilian Commission, right? So, Orolbai won the fight anyways, so it doesn't really matter. Pereira probably would have won the fight anyways, so it doesn't really matter. But it's just interesting, and I can see this having a huge effect on fights going forward, right? I think that probably Potiera deserves that fight to be a no contest. Okay, let's talk about the judging. People are talking about Erceg versus Pantoja. That was pretty bad. But you know what else was bad? Erceg and Kareckaite versus Dion Barbosa. Okay. Yeah. Both of these fights were given to the hometown fighters, the Brazilian, by the judges in pretty clear violation of the unified rule set. Let's talk about judging criteria in the unified rule set. I pulled something out here. Legal blows that have immediate or cumulative impact with the potential to contribute towards the end of the match, with the immediate weighing in more heavily than the cumulative impact, successful execution of takedowns, submission attempts, reversals, and the achievement of advantageous positions that produce immediate or cumulative impact with the potential to contribute to the end of the match, with immediate weighing more heavily than the cumulative impact. Right? It shall be noted that the successful takedown is not merely a changing of position, but the establishment of an attack from the use of the takedown. Top and bottom position fighters are assessed more on the impactful, effective use of their actions, more so than their position. That is to say, if I'm on my back, but I've got, I'm actually trying to grapple and maybe, lock in a triangle choke, but my opponent's just laying on top, I am actually winning that position. Right? This criterion will be the deciding factor in a majority of decisions when scoring a round. The next two criteria must be treated as a backup and used only when effective striking and grappling is 100% equal for a round. That's ring control and aggressiveness, those next two, right? Immediate weighing in more heavily than cumulative impact, and takedowns in position only matter when they are contributing towards the end of a fight. So, when Kareckaite fought Barbosa, right, classic grappler versus striker match, first round, she got taken down and controlled. There was not very much damage happening in that round, very clear for Barbosa. But the second and the third rounds, Barbosa was clearly outdamaged by Kareckaite. She had big shots landed on her. She, yes, got a few takedowns and had maybe a minute or two of control time in each round, but was clearly outdamaged in each round. No submission attempts, right? No ground and pound. Just control time. Immediate weighing in more effectively than the cumulative, and also position only matters when you're trying to end the fight. Yet, somehow, it was clearly scored by all three judges for the Brazilian, who did not, according to the unified rule set's judging criteria, actually win the fight. And I know everyone's talking about Erceg versus Pantoja, as they should, and I'm going to talk about that in a minute as well. But, this doesn't super hurt Erceg's career. Obviously, it would be good for him to walk out of there with the belt that he earned, but his stock goes up anyways. Whereas Kareckaite, she's probably on her first contract, right? She just got out of Dana White's Contender Series. She's making her debut, right? This is a huge impact. Now she's got to fight, another debutante who's probably a hype debutante who might take advantage of her, right? She should be coming off a win. She's in the most fragile part of her career in the UFC, and she's been handed a loss that she didn't deserve just because the Brazilian judges handed a win to the Brazilian fighter who did not deserve it, right? And, I don't want to be one of those guys who's if you look back at my videos, I love wrestling. I love watching wrestling exchanges. I love watching grappling exchanges, right? I got nothing against the Dagestanis. I often fight people who accuse people of crotch sniffing or whatever. It's mixed martial arts. Mix the martial arts. That's fine. But if you are just going to lay on top of somebody, you have to recognize that this does not earn your points. And the judges have to recognize that you are not being earned points by just laying on top of somebody, right? What you're doing to end the fight matters a lot more than having top position, right? This really screwed over a debuting fighter who now has to go uphill in order to get another contract with the UFC, and that is very disappointing to me. And I'm sure it's disappointing to her as well. Nothing against Barbosa. She fought the way that worked for her. It's not her fault the judges scored it that way. And I want to be clear as well. I got nothing but respect for Pantoja as well when I talk about this next one. absolute dog, great fighter. But top position doesn't matter unless you are using it to try to end the fight. Okay, let's talk about Steve Erceg, right? Okay, so first round, damage is largely even, but Erceg gets controlled. Clear Pantoja round, right? Fair enough. Second, third, and fourth round. Well, okay, second and fourth round were clear Erceg rounds because he very clearly outdamaged Pantoja, and Pantoja established very little control time, and the control time he did establish, he didn't do anything with, right? Okay, so it comes down... So theoretically, even if you give the fifth round to Pantoja, which I don't think you should, and I'll talk about that, it comes down to that third round, right? And that third round, Pantoja had volume, but Erceg landed that nasty elbow that had Pantoja covered in blood. Let me note, going back to the unified rule set, legal blows that have immediate or cumulative impact with the potential to contribute towards the end of the match, with the immediate weighing in more heavily than the cumulative impact. As in, if you hit a big elbow that immediately has someone grabbing their face, covered in blood, shelling up, that matters a lot more than them landing 3 or 4 hooks on you, right? Especially when they don't actually end up getting the control advantage in that round, if they're like doing ground and pound or whatever, right? The immediate weighs more heavily than the cumulative. Nobody understands this, but I don't know why nobody understands this. I don't know why the judges don't understand this. Like, MMA is a sport that probably has, like, I hate using this term, but like, I'm not going to say casual, but like, people just don't understand how the sport actually works. Nobody has like any basic understanding of like the simplest of grappling techniques. Nobody has the most basic understanding of, scoring. And like, it's fine if the fans are just vibes based. Like, it's annoying to be part of a community where people don't understand the sport, but like, whatever. But the fact that the judges are scoring the rounds based on vibes is ridiculous, right? The fifth round, too, Erceg cuts Pantoja open again on his temple above his eye, right? Even if Pantoja manages to control Erceg for the last 2 minutes of that round, which he does, not landing any ground and pound until the last 5 seconds of the fight, and even that was just like little hammer fists that dink, dink, dink off of the side of Erceg's head and do nothing. The most damaging round, with immediate impact, the most damaging strike of that round was landed by Erceg, and the striking was largely even in terms of pure numbers. So, 49-46, if there's a 49-46 scorecard, it has to be given to Erceg. Personally, I scored at 3-2 because I wanted to give Pantoja the benefit of the doubt in the fifth round. But rewatching it, I ended up scoring at 49-46 for Erceg. Right? If you are horrifically biased and scoring the rounds on vibes, maybe you can justify a 3-2 for Pantoja. But you can't justify a 49-46, and the fact that Pantoja was given a 49-46 scorecard just tells you that these judges don't actually care about properly judging these rounds. They're doing it based on vibes. They're doing it so they don't get drinks thrown at them by the crowds, although by that point, half the crowd was gone. I'll talk about that next, right? And Erceg, who worked hard to earn that title, now has to go and fight his way back to it, because nobody in the top 5 is going to fight this guy now. Remember, he's ranked number 10. This was his shot, right? I think he will be champion one day, but now he has to fight other people in that range. He's going to have like 2 or 3 more fights to get back to the title, right? This title shot's going to go to somebody like Mikhaev, who had an absolute stinker of a performance and then posted his own shit on Twitter to justify it, right? Because if I'm Royval or Moreno or like Kai Kara-France or Albazi or Manel Cap, why would I fight Steve Erceg after this performance? I don't have to, right? So now he's going to have to go back into the weeds when he won the belt. Like, he won that fight, and it's ridiculous, right? Okay. Let's talk about this final piece of the puzzle here. The fans. The fans sucked. Oh my god. Dude, the arena never even filled up. Like, not even for Jose Aldo did the arena fill up. They kept showing crowd shots, and there are these massive blotches of these big, empty, red seats where nobody's sitting. In the middle of the fight. This isn't like a fight night. Like, it's Jose Aldo coming out of retirement. The greatest Brazilian fighter of all time, right? Like, an absolute legend of the sport is coming out of retirement. Never mind the fact that you have, a Brazilian champion defending his belt. The only Brazilian champion. Only one of the two Brazilian champions in the UFC. Never mind the fact that you have all your, fun prospects on the undercard. And nobody's there, right? And not only did nobody show up even for Jose Aldo, then half of the people who were there just left before Pantoja even made his walk. And he deserves a lot more respect than that, because even though I think he lost this fight, this guy is an incredible fighter. He's an absolute dog. He got the crap beating out of him, but he never stopped. And this is, indicative, all of his fights are like this, right? Royval landed well on him, and he never stopped. Moreno landed really well on him, and he never stopped. Right? And even this performance against Erceg, even though I believe he lost, it was so admirable how he never gave up. He fought to the end. He kept trying to find beneficial positions. He kept trying to land damage. Right? It wasn't this thing where I think that he deserved to lose the belt. I just think that Erceg deserved to win it more. He deserves so much respect. And the fact that a reigning champion who has now defended his belt twice, which is more than average, has to, in his hometown, beg the fans not to leave during his speech is absolutely absurd, right? People talked about, when Glover Teixeira got beat by Jamal Hill and retired, how everyone left and he was doing his retirement speech to an empty crowd. You would have thought that maybe the Brazilians would have learned their lesson, that maybe they would have thought, okay, I should show more respect to, my fighters. But no. Even when, begged by their own champion, who's now defended their belt, they've just decided, okay, I'm done, I'm going home, I'm not going to listen to this guy. You could have waited for 3 minutes. It's ridiculous, the amount of disrespect that these fans have to their own fighters who are putting on absolute wars for their entertainment, right? They don't deserve the fighters they have, right? They don't deserve Alexandre Pantoja. They don't deserve Alex Pereira, certainly. I'm glad that he got taken off of this card. They didn't deserve Glover Teixeira. They don't deserve Jose Aldo. And it's just sad that this is... Chael was right, and as much as I hate to say it, Colby was right. Brazilian fans suck. And I never want to see the UFC go back to Brazil, because their fans haven't shown that they deserve it, right? Even Canada, when they came here in Toronto in 297, the fights sucked, which is not true about 301. All of our fighters, except for 2, lost. But the fans stayed there the whole time. They made noise. They were passionate. And they sold out the ACC. We're not even an MMA country. Brazil is. We didn't have any champions. Brazil does. So until the fans can prove... I don't think they ever will. Right? The fans have been given countless opportunities to prove that they deserve the attention that the UFC gives them. And they let them down every single time. So not only is Brazil a corrupt-ass place that lets their fighters down when they fight there, but also the fans simply don't deserve the level of effort that gets put in to entertaining them. I think there are plenty of places in the world that deserve a pay-per-view level card. Places like France, places like Poland, places like China, Japan, right? Canada, the UK, Spain, right? We have to wait until mid-next year for Spain, but Brazil gets one? Other smaller cities in America, but Brazil gets it. Despite all of this. I never want to see it again. I'm serious. This could have been a great night of fights that was absolutely ruined by the atmosphere, ruined by the refereeing, ruined by the judging. And the fighters were really let down. The sport was really let down by Brazil. So, thanks for inventing the sport, I guess, but we'll take it from here. Thanks for watching, guys. See you in the next one.